I guess a good way to start with, I wrote some basic ones, and, it's about, and of course, the option is, like, despite the title, if you haven't happened to play Dread, we can always talk about other Metroid-related stuff, but, it's pretty remarkable. MAGFest it's not only cool that we're having MAGFest again this year, but then, it seems like a very niche topic, but no, I mean, probably when it's new, that's what's cool about it. But, as cool as so many things were in the game, like sequence breaking, my lame jokes about shine sparking, things like that, and like one person I think said on Discord, like, I really don't, your jokes are weird, or something about the spider ball and everything like that, but I'm a very lame person, so I do that kind of stuff. Did anybody feel that the controls were kind of a missed opportunity in Dread? Say for the experimental nature of Prime being the first 3D, that's like its own kind of miracle, especially when you read about the development hell that game went through. Mm-hmm. Controls in Metroid, especially 2D, have always been very tight and precise. Acrobatic maneuvers, entire sequence breaking, all depending on learning the ins and outs to each player. You want the early Super Missiles, Super Metroid? You can mock the game with the mock ball. You want to do reverse boss order? Good. I mean, that's a little ambitious for me, but, have fun with it. But when it comes to Dread, because it has analog-only controls, mostly as a way of, like, enabling the free aiming system, and especially if you want to use pull off the the cooler tricks like the instant killing of that boss, it's certainly not as smooth as it could be. Thoughts from anybody?
I just wish there was a way to not have to kill Crocomire in Super Metroid. Mm-hmm. That's all I gotta say.
Mm-hmm. I kind of hope that the Primes, or like the next Prime 4, kind of goes for more of like a VR approach, like the most in-depth, serious graphics. I'm a huge fan of the way Prime is played, the first-person shooter. I think that works well with Metroid, better than like the side-scroller, but that's just me.
Well, you sound like super hardcore. I don't mess with like sequence breaks and stuff like that. I've yet to try that, so
yeah,
I can't.
Same.
I can't really say, but it sounds fun.
Mm-hmm. The little details, like they did take cracks at the precision, like the ability to continue the shine spark with just a little bounce off the wall. It seemed more like that was like a compromise to the system, and it was especially difficult for me because I have one of those little 8-bit do controllers. As great as they are, it's difficult to like press the L3 essentially, so I would often have to undock my Switch to be able to do that, and that was certainly an annoyance, but it's kind of like of my own making. But I like how they encourage the shine sparking, so it's kind of like, as great as a game is, it's that, like there's so many of the obvious things to talk about, but then there's the little nuances that, like, was it bad? Is there anything that, or are we just kind of like nitpicking, these little things? I think at best it's a nitpick. Anyone from the audience? Or? Mm-hmm. You had your hand? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, in addition to a nitpick, it's one of those things like, I always go to like, there's other examples, but like geeks especially, because, sometimes we have trouble not recognizing our own brilliance or brilliance in our own mind. And the go-to example of that is a director named Courtney Solomon, who made a little movie with Jeremy Irons in the year 2000. Anybody know where I'm going with this? No, Dungeons and Dragons. And she was, quote unquote, a huge fan of Dungeons and Dragons, which is pretty much the worst person in the world to get to direct a movie like that, because they can't see the forest for the trees, they're blinded by their own brilliance, that kind of thing. So I think that's applicable to a lot of different things, but I think it's already a niche market, but I think I always try and remember that lesson whenever I want to get away from nitpicking, but like, oh, I've got the answers. I know how I would make the game perfect, even though I think it's already pretty darn close, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good lesson. What do you think? Did you anybody try playing it on hard mode, or how's that going?
No.
No?
No.
Not yet.
Yeah, just I want to mention the grappling controls. Didn't really like the grappling controls.
Yeah.
They didn't have a remapping function like Super Metroid has. A remapping function, why not put it in Dread? I feel like that's not asking for too much.
Yeah. I think that's where, the points I was like trying to get beyond, like, even if it is an individual point, but it's kind of stuff, I mean, it wouldn't even be difficult to do with like patches or something like that, as tempting as you're just going to throw back to it and say, nope, analog gaming, we can't do it. I think they could, Yeah. What was that? Anybody, I mean, it's kind of a rarity, especially because even though we're talking about Metroid in general, it's certainly not Other M, but anybody happen to dislike the game or really thought it was just a grand misfire? I suppose even, it's hard to, in my opinion, to think of it as like what it is less of a misfire at. It's a great game initially because it's 2D, which is still kind of bold, even with the rise of indie gaming and stuff and being more common, or the fact that it continued the story in a meaningful way. And I think I'd be very interested to hear like how into either of those where people think maybe either aspects of those failed.
I think there is a huge problem with like because of the continuation of the story. I definitely do like the story of Metroid Dread, but it seems like we completely dropped the ending, like the ending beat of the fusion story where it's like you're supposed to be a fugitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God. And that was gonna be rad.
Yeah, I mean, there was a mini debate. I think it was mostly abandoned by, depends on who you ask. It was either, I usually use like Kingdom Hearts, Dream Drop Distance, because that was a very, like quote unquote handheld, and there's still people who believe that, but the Switch has kind of muddied the water extremely on that, but it was never an attitude people were able to really articulate it, so it probably comes from advertisers and that they just got in our brain like an earworm, that, like, handheld entries can't be mainline titles and all that other nonsense. So if you're going to attempt to tell a story, and this is across the board, but I've always thought Zelda, I don't know if anybody had this conversation like when Breath of the Wild came out, I guess it would depend on the analytics, like who played it in handheld mode versus who played it on TV or something weird like that. But some people deny the debate they said it never did exist, but I think it was a thing, where they, like, handheld titles couldn't be anything significant. So do you think that was still in over their heads? I mean, that was, like, the thoughts behind it for Mercury Steam? Like, they couldn't do anything with the story? Or that really wasn't your concern?
No, I mean, I don't think like that. I don't see how they couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're already like referencing fusion, and like we're already like going back to it. And, we certainly have like the same recap. And
Back there?
Return of Samus and Fusion, you should never presume that handheld games don't matter in the Metroid series.
Yeah. I wish I had an article or something.
Systems, which is arguably a weakness, but
Yeah. And yeah, that's, yeah, I mean, people will debate about it, like when exactly the Game Boy was a runaway hit. Some people say as early as like Zelda Link's Awakening. Other people say no, not until Pokemon. But, those numbers were hard to deny. So it is a bizarre attitude. But, I think that is a thing when it comes to like, if nothing else, storyline wise, they can't be games of consequence.
I think the problem is a lot of developers think of it as a secondary opportunity, a port machine, or just a side project. Like,
Yeah.
DuckTales and DuckTales 2 from NES are both on the original game. They're basically the same game from then.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of it that way, a handheld is just an alternate your own your intent.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of it like the way they did it with Metroid, though, each game is its own story on each different system. When you do it that way, you make the story matter for each system, no matter which one it's on. Then you can't ever think of it as, well, it's on this system, so it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So Metroid did that right, whereas most other franchises for a very long time have not.
Mhm. Did you have something on that also?
Oh, the only thing I wish Dread was different was difficulty. Maybe just a little, tone it down just a little bit. Like some bosses are kind of hard to beat in the beginning, like such as Kraid with only 2 energy tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've definitely done Fusion.
I hadn't heard from you much, Jen. Did you have any thoughts
Oh, I'm
about
good.
it? Thank you. Just trying to cover everybody's bases. Over here. Excuse me. Yeah. I suppose that's an angle to it on Mercury Steam. Like, I certainly didn't think Samus Returns was bad, but it almost feels like it's like they were like incomplete pros compared to their efforts on this. You know, like, did that lead to anyone like thinking they weren't going to be able to pull it off just because maybe they found Samus Returns unremarkable, or that was it always going to be like a home run to you? You like there was never a time where you doubted Dread? Anybody? Mm-hmm.
I definitely like had just like in general like there's a non-zero chance it could like suck, but like
Suck.
but I did like Samus Returns.
Yeah.
A lot. So I definitely had like a solid amount of faith, but I didn't like
I liked Samus Returns too, but I did find it a little repetitive.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't feel that way with Dread.
Yeah.
But I think, for me, it's hard to be critical of Dread because, you're just so happy to have the new thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
Like, it'll
it's
be
hard for me.
interesting,
I'm just
like
sit back and let you guys.
the 6-month cliche or the 6-year cliche. We'll see how people feel about it. Like I even, it used to be when you were younger, and then I had to think to myself, it's like, wow, it has been 19 years since a 2D Metroid. So it doesn't feel like it to me though.
Wow,
'Cause,
we're old.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You can count like AM2R, and that might be one of the reasons why I didn't initially get it. I believe it was in your panel at Otakon. I didn't know some of the thoughts about how people were either indifferent or hostile to Samus Returns, but it also could be because I played AM2R, then Samus Returns, then the original on the 3DS, and it was almost like a blur noticing it. It was more just like different interpretations, that it all felt like, here's my version of it, here's Milton Guari's Dr. M64, whatever the guy's name actually is, here's his version, Have you played AM2R?
Yes, I have.
That was something special, but I guess kind of like what I was saying about the nitpicky type stuff, as long as you're not being too serious, I'm not sure I could definitively say which one of those games are better, including the original, because of what it was able to achieve in like 1990.
It was good for the time. I think that almost AM2R was like Nintendo's original idea, because soon after AM2R, Samus Returns came out as soon as like that game came out almost. So it's like the same game, but that was kind of odd.
well that was like the whole theory for why they slapped him with
Yeah. The cease and desist order. Yeah, that's what I was like. Yeah, they took our idea. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they've of course superseded that with numerous things, including like bankrupting ROM Nation and things like that. But that one's probably even more understandable from an intellectual property type of view. So it's like hard to take out the emotion of the argument. That's where it was. But maybe I'm getting this wrong, so feel free to correct me on this. But I believe AM2R was kind of that. where the original version, the Omega Metroids, were much tougher to kill than the later ones, or was it vice versa? Because that kind of like is its own little difficulty type commentary. Yeah, so see, it shows you how it's tough, you know? How about question?
Battles and Samus Returns were way better, and it's just, I feel like it's a more professional made game. I mean, it is a AAA game, and AM2 are nice and all, but it's a fan-made game.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a fan-made game. It reuses assets, it reuses music, it's very derivative. It doesn't take a lot of liberties, as many as Samus Returns did. So I look at Samus Returns as similar to Zero Mission. You know, Zero Mission is a completely different game to Metroid 1, and it's awesome. And I felt the same way about Samus Returns. Samus Returns is a completely different game than Metroid 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I like Samus Returns.
I think it's really hard. Like, I believe it was the Angry Video Game Nerd, when he was just doing a timeline on Zelda. It was like a very passionate but also an articulate statement when he said that when he was trying to do a half-baked timeline about it, he goes like, it's really hard to find stuff about Zelda to get mad at without being too forced. And that's kind of like what I feel the essential understanding, especially as more Metroid games have come out, you know. It's fun to discuss it, but not to the point where, you know, unless you got like money on the line, it's like, is it really just not a matter of being better, just a matter of being different, and it's all there that makes it good to me. It's almost like it feels like you're belaboring the point, I feel, if you're really gonna like try and delineate it to that point, but it's just so great that there's so many options for it and so many different viewpoints. You wanna say something?
There's other things in the Metroid series we can get actually angry at.
Yeah. Well, Dan, when exactly was it that they kind of retconned the ending of Fusion to say that, do you remember when, to say that they weren't the Federation, the people on the space station?
Wait, what?
Am I quoting you correctly? It was a rogue faction?
That became a plot point that was later followed up in other ends.
Okay.
Samus decides to call that faction the ringleaders.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess either I didn't remember it in the original game, or it took me a long time to play Fusion besides the original. It was nice that Game Boy Advance emulation was right there from the front, right from the start, because the Game Boy Advance was kind of hard to find, but...
They did retcon something else in Fusion, though.
Oh.
Mercury's theme. In Fusion at the beginning, Samus makes a comment saying, that's twice now that the Metroid has saved my life. Or Mercury's theme as the third instance of maybe Metroid saving Samus.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. You see. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. Anybody else want to like take this in a different direction? Thoughts? Other Metroid games, obviously, also. You know, just because it's always good to have. Let's see. Over here. Oh, yep, I remember that one from Prime, was it? The Orphan or Orpheon? Yeah, that reminds me, I think I had something on that. Nope, I don't. Any areas you wanted to discuss in general about Metroid?
The primes rule. I love them. They're so amazing. First one's the best. I like the third one better than the second. I think the second one needed to be more polished a little bit. I don't know, just dark and light portals were a little repetitive. Dark and light world was kind of a little cliche, I thought, but you know, it was cool. Nintendo kind of went for like a dark kind of theme then, like with Twilight Princess. I remember kind of the same enemies almost. The Ing and the Twilight Beast I always thought kind of looked the same. I don't know if they were like an alternate universe. Yeah. I just.
The Dark World and then like the deserts.
Yeah, that was cool. Corruption was amazing. It looked so clean and really cool. Like they brought in actual voice actors and like other hunters, kind of like Metro Prime hunters. hopefully Metroid will go back down the Prime path. I really like it. Not trying to say the other Metroids are bad. I love them all. Okay, I worship it. But
You like it, so the 3Ds are your thing?
yeah,
it's
we
fun.
need more 3D Metroids.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, just not like other M style. Like good graphics like other M, but not gameplay or story. Just Prime, like show, don't tell. Ideally, Prime 4.
True, yeah.
Yeah, show, don't tell. Remember, Metroid's always supposed to be like that. I mean, you can tell a little bit, but keep it to minimum.
It took me a while to play Prime 2, I guess just because there was a lot of good stuff in 2004, and I don't know why I had trouble saying that there, but nothing wrong with the original Prime, but it had more of a development to go through, and I think one of the things that Prime 2, probably for a long time, and I'm still not sure if Dread kind of gets there because of like the controller issue, but I still think it's probably Prime 2, and yes, I'm even talking about the Spider Guardian and the Boost Guardian, but stuff like Quadraxis, the Emperor Ing, I really think that's really good boss battles, 2D or otherwise.
Quadraxis rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, the spider ball gets a lot of hate, but that was
I thought it was interesting,
It's hard.
It was cool.
It's a very interesting and fun boss battle.
Yeah.
Though, I don't know, the thing is with Prime 2, I don't know if I'm just bad, but like, I literally could not beat I literally couldn't beat Everett Part 2 on hyper mode. Like, I literally could not get hit. I would run out of the ammo. Am I bad or is it really hard?
It's hard.
In like an unfair way.
It's a little poorly communicated, like, we're supposed to be doing what's effective, like, in the fight. Like,
Yeah.
Annihilator beam.
whether it's
Let me see.
Yeah, it is hard. Especially Dark
here's
Samus.
some fun things I found on the internet for Dread. I was trying to remember the chat.
I love
this
these.
one. This is pretty much what caused me to want to have a panel. And, thank you again, MAGFest, for having us.
Literally, I have a buddy
Yeah.
who's been like going through Dread, and he's been getting so angry because of of how Anna talks Raven Beak up so much, and he thinks it's oh my god, someone is getting off to this, and it's I want, and it's no, he's Adam's talking to Raven Beak like this because of me.
And here I was thinking it was more like H.L. Menck and Mark Twain, it's not far from the game. Is this satire or is this really that much further than the way they talk in the game? It's not much of an exaggeration that whoever created this, but I like the way you put it, But sure, yeah. I don't know if there was more. I think this one was maybe 3 days after the game came out, and that's it was. I'm sure there's more. The internet being the internet, but I think it probably will always be my favorite one. The next one is definitely not. As MAGFest likes to say, it's not quite PG-15, but it's late. It's after midnight, so I don't think anybody will mind. You have a hand over there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to ask a question about Metroid Prime.
Sure.
So the current rumors are that Metroid Prime 1 is going to be remade before Metroid Prime 4 comes on, but not 2 and 3. And then there's all this stuff about Metroid Prime 3 can't be remade because of the motion controls and all this stuff. But it doesn't really seem that Metroid Prime Dread is a success, even though I feel like a lot of people playing it haven't played any of the Metroid games before.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
If that Metroid Prime 1 does get remade, what effect does that have on Metroid Prime 4 coming out if you guys think?
Yeah.
It seems like no Metroid game being remade has any effect.
When you say remade, do you mean just remastered and re-released, or
It's unclear. I'm just calling it a remake.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think.
A lot of rumors about Metroid Prime 1 being either remastered or
Yeah. I mean, I've always kind of, and I forgot, I should have put it in the panel. It was I believe it was a guy who, I think he said he worked for no, it wasn't Retro Studios. It was the Metroid database, the ones that were doing the original speedrunning strategies, Quadraxis, the key skip, and it echoed back to my original panel idea because it's almost like a tone-deaf joke considering the situation that was going on with Retro Studios, but I still found it amazing No one's from, darn, I messed this up already. But the whole idea, you know, like the theme of the original Metroid, you know, that you can find surprises in the most unexpected areas. And to me, like if someone was to tell me that not only is a Metroid game going to come from Texas, but a good Metroid game,
Yeah.
that's just not believable, you know. And it's not really, when we know about what was going on behind the scenes, you know, it probably doesn't work as well, but it's still, the guy told me the reason, you know, 1.0, 1.1 of Metroid Prime, the instant I heard they were doing that, and he had a good one too, and that's why I wasn't interested in like the motion controls, the Wii version. I still got my original one from 2002, because I love the sequence breaking in that game, you know. But he was like, Retro Studios apparently would contact them. He goes like, "Stop breaking our finely polished game," and like, another unexpected thing coming from Texas. What is this world?
Yeah.
You know, and over here, yeah.
Because Mike can already went on record saying like it would be absolutely possible to port the game or
Yeah, well, yeah. He was saying that adapting the way the motion controls are set up in the Wii games would be impossible to adapt to the Joy-Con.
and also the scripting engine that
Or not, he didn't say possible. He said it would be like way too high the budget. Or yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't ignore that too.
I don't know about the trilogy. It's been fluttering very loudly for like half a decade now.
Yeah, that's kind of, you know, I mean, AM2R, and of course the ROM Nation thing. But then again, there's, you know, it's existed in one form or another, but when it comes to like more insidious, long-running things that Nintendo's done, there's always the Nintendo tax, so there's that possibility too. You know, that's not enough to necessarily generate interest, but that's a thing, obviously. So it's something they've always done in one form or another, even if it wasn't just the unparalleled success like of the Switch and other things, you know. So Nintendo, as like Ben Crawshaw of Zero Punctuation said, it's like, it's amazing all the goodwill they have, even though they really don't deserve it, you know. And to me, the one that kind of annoys me the most is the idea that they saved the video game industry. Not only, I can't talk enough garbage about Hiroshi Yamauchi, about how top down, you know, like he really thought he was brilliant when he was lucky, but Nintendo is the one, and you can see this like in old Atari ads for even inane games like Gotcha, which was like a reaction to the phallic nature of joysticks. But businessman, middle-aged women, they were all playing video games. It was Nintendo who said, no, we're going to refocus it and make it for kids. And we're still suffering from that to these days, you know. So you can delineate again from Nintendo, but they absolutely deserve contempt for that, you know, because it's never really gone away. There is still the moral panic, you know, where video games are still blamed for a lot of stuff, you know. So I don't think Nintendo, even though many of those things like the Switch tax and everything, I think if we're going to really dump on Nintendo, we should do that, because they didn't have to do that, you know, deliberately refocus the marketing to say, guess what, this is going to be for kids, but they did.
Right.
Sorry, I hope that wasn't too dark. You know?
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, did you have your hand up or no? Oh, okay, sorry. We were kind of around Prime. Go ahead. Yeah. Sure. Sorry, I missed a lot of that. Did you guys hear?
I'm sorry, not much.
Oh, like like a goodwill decision, but like a very conventional one but it wouldn't come off as like cloying or desperate. You're saying, like, again, to me that strikes me as like the Dungeons and Dragons syndrome. As much as I'm a fan, I think if they asked me or if they asked any fan, I'd hope they'd give a similar answer. I'd be like, how are you going to make Dread 2 and make it an awesome game? It's like, don't ask me. I already like Dread. I can't see the forest for the trees. I don't know how to make it better. How would you approach such a question?
I
Or either.
don't know.
It's tough. See, that's what,
It's
like, what
late.
point is it nitpicking,
But
or is
no,
it,
like-
it's a tough question.
It's so the question is like, so Dread is a success.
Yeah.
What's next, basically?
Oh, yeah, that's a good way.
Yeah. I can't think of anything like really specific like that. I mean, I just want more Metroid. I can't imagine like Metroid Warriors.
Yeah,
or
that's a good way to
No
think.
more like
More Metroid is
Federation
always a good
Force
thing.
or
More
something
Metroid
like
is-
that. No.
I think the recipe to success is just like let Mercury give Mercury steam the controls of the ship.
Yeah.
Or retro.
The Retro's gonna get their chance too.
It's
Yes,
what a
retro.
world we live in, like if we, even 5 years ago, we'd have been like, Metroid's back, and especially sales-wise, because, even without getting into the whole Japanese thing, and people, as much as they tried to blame like Yoshia Sakamoto because he was Japanese for Other M, that didn't gel because the sales numbers weren't there, when they were talking about our characterization, though that's not entirely, but it's now that we have a game that actually has sold really well, like, what was it?
Yeah.
8 million? Or am I way off on that? I think it's several million.
It did
and that-
good. Yeah.
like 10 times, I think 10 times even the closest, I think I remember reading. It's like crazy.
The game of the year lists.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It actually won an award.
Woo.
Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
tempting.
Best action.
Yeah.
I guess I would say, another poor pun, I would say to dread lightly.
Yeah.
Like tread
God.
lightly, that generic expression.
Yes.
So two things. I just want to go back on earlier point and say one thing.
Please.
I played the trilogy on the Wii first, and I think honestly the motion controls feel great, and I literally cannot play the games on the A2 anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I think it feels great just pointing and shooting.
It does.
Even the little action things in Corruption feel fun.
I love those controls. I've only played the game once. I don't know why I've never revisited, but I thought it was like really smooth.
Yeah. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
So immersive.
I always feel like a little bit disappointing because they can do some motion controls on Switch, but
Yeah, they can.
But the other thing is, I do still blame Sakamoto, at least some, because he ran the game and he said they went as he planned it exactly. So
Yeah.
obviously, if that was his plan and that was how his execution, and that was what he got, and he didn't stop it from yet.
He knew what he was doing.
Oh yeah, it's like Yamuchi again. He would take credit when he could, but he would defer blame when he could, and that's
Yeah.
why he was kind of scummy in my opinion. And people like Guru Larry have videos on him, and I doubt it. Again, inculcating the culture he did, being the president for so long. I'm sure Sakamoto either relished under that or was a result of it. So that's kind of like for lack of a better word, the unsexy part of being a fan, but it's also the realities. I think you got to be aware of it. It does come from everywhere. Oh, and I don't know if you guys can read that well, but this one is also good. It's like, Samus, you're never going to be strong enough to take on that dashing, mysterious rogue who defeated you when you arrived. Seriously, I reviewed the footage and he took you out like the trash. It was like watching Helen Keller try to fight a gorilla. Truly, he seems like a peerless ubermensch. That's my favorite part. I bet he has an 8-pack under that beautiful custom armor of his. I bet he gets all the big booty bird bitches.
Yeah.
Definitely some parts are better, but I like that one a lot too. But yeah.
Anybody, any thoughts on big booty bird bitches?
Yeah.
Why not,
I'm kidding.
I'm starting to wonder if the Chozo only exist as men.
They don't give any screen time to the women shows. I guess.
Yeah.
We don't even know literally if they exist. We don't know.
Yeah.
We had a hand back there. Yeah.
I know we talked about not doing spin-offs, but
like that, yeah. Yeah.
Just no more blast ball.
That's another game that it's almost like, but then again, when you, I guess because it was, in some ways, it's like the most high-profile pinball game, so it seems like an afterthought. But there were other ones like Mario Pinball before it, Kirby's Pinball, I believe there's a Pokemon Pinball. Same developer, so yeah. So maybe that's a little bit of the handheld curse, quote-unquote, but the game, you know, I think it came after the fact, because I think that actually is one of the lower-selling ones, but, you know, it's not exactly like a top-notch, I mean, it's not a difficult concept, I guess. So, like, of course it ended up being a good game because pinball is kind of like, even when it comes to, like, the physical pinball machines, you know, they do follow a certain path. But it's interesting. I think it should be applauded just because of how they were able to adapt Prime as they did. But it's...
No, it's good for what it is, and it's cool that, like, yeah, they made the Prime game into, like, a multiple game.
Yeah.
And, like, objectives.
It was smart to use that, the DS screen is so vertically oriented. For the first time in history, you have a vertically oriented set of screens, you know, in a consumer hand outside of an arcade.
Just no more blast ball or Federation Force.
I'm trying, speaking of Prime, I think this is, I wish I could see my slideshow, but, oh wait, is this it? Let's see, I don't do this is because another nice thing MAGFest did for all like the staff, they give us Wi-Fi access, so I'm so used to various conventions not having it as an option, so I try and memorize sometimes, but I can't always. I believe this is also the Prime related
And
stuff.
rescue the baby. When they arrive, Magra shoots a bunch of shit at Space Godzilla. Missiles, chest lasers, and even does a screw attack. Yeah, not like Samus though. Space Godzilla's pretty powerful. He uses spikes from his fortress as missiles, and even has a shield to deflect Godzilla's atomic breath. The pilots find out that Space Godzilla's getting his energy from a large tower, which Godzilla and Magra demolish. Then Godzilla and Magra try to destroy the crystals in Space Godzilla's body, but he gets fucking pissed and he impales Magra with his tail. They use the same idea in Metroid Prime when Samus is fighting the Omega Pirate boss. Samus has to blow off the shoulder crystals just like in this movie. Anyway, Godzilla ends up just killing Space Godzilla.
But yeah, that's one of those where he says basically someone was a fan, and as silly as the movie kind of looks, especially when he says, but there's a great part where Space Godzilla abducts baby Godzilla, and someone on the island is observing him. It's like, wow, I wouldn't want to mess with him today. So you like feel the fury, and I definitely think Nintendo it's pretty hard to deny that they were probably inspired by that movie, because that one came out in 1994, you know, and Metroid Prime was in like development hell for a long time, but the similarities are certainly there, wouldn't you say? And I think that's a cool little thing. Let's see. Yeah, I've still got about 15 minutes. Probably can go a little bit longer, just because I say so. Plus, we had some difficulties. If you'll indulge us, of course. Let's see. Anyone we haven't heard from? Why don't you in the back first, if you like, or either one. Why don't you just go first in the red, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, please.
It was 854 as of October that Dread sold.
800 and
54,000.
Dread? That's it? I thought it had already gone way past a million.
Well, I mean,
Is that worldwide?
yeah, I think that was worldwide.
Oh.
That was for October.
Wow.
I thought they said something like, you know, within like a week or something, it already outsold by like every individual Metroid game by like 5 times. No?
The highest they ever sold was apparently 2.8 million.
Yeah.
On, 5 million.
Yeah. I guess that's something that you get disillusioned by, you know, like, as like one of the Giant Bomb guys once said, you know, like in this case it was towards Zelda, but it can apply to anything. It's like after the whole backlash about perfect scores, and thankfully Dredd didn't have to deal with that when it came to Breath of the Wild, he goes like, your esports aficionado is not going to care about Zelda. Or maybe he will. You know, the idea that as tempting as it is for things like esports, Call of Duty, Fortnite, you know, the games that sell tens of millions, and even, you know, that it seems almost like sales numbers have no meaning anymore. So it's nice when Metroid Dread gets a little bit of that pie, but I guess it can lead to inflated expectations. I thought it was something like 5 million already, but again, the standards have been totally skewed. So, but it's still, I do know that part is true, and that's good, you know. And behind you, or go.
Climax at the beginning where
That's true, yeah, yeah. That counter system, it's not quite maybe, it's not Ninja Gaiden levels of precision, you know, the parrying, but I think it took me about 8 tries. How was it for you guys when it came to, you know, the Raven Beak counters? Not too bad, or
That was fine.
At the same time, though, it was the essential kind of boss battle where, like, every time I messed up, I wasn't like, oh, what garbage? I want to try again, and that's mark of a good design.
Yeah.
You know. Go ahead. Silk Song. Yeah, sorry. I don't know.
Like, what costume am I wearing?
The Miyamoto quote. That's another good one. You know, a delayed game is bad, a bad game is forever, and that's kind of like a good essential statement behind the whole 19 years thing. I actually had to think about it. It's like, oh, Dread is out. Has it really been that long? But that's like a motto I often live by because, yeah. But Silk Song, I'm sure it will be out eventually. You know. Oh, I thought, yeah, Silk Song is the one about Hornet and, you know, Metroid. That's one of the most definitive ones that it could be argued actually follows the Metroidvania the best, because it did kind of annoy me that it doesn't have a New Game Plus like so many of the best ones, but I've come to kind of appreciate that. And Silk Song is, you know, but yeah, it's kind of like the same requirement as we were saying about different things. You don't have to play all the Metroids. You don't have to play all the Metroidvanias. You don't even have to... The one that surprised me a few years ago, it's like apparently people say that the term Castleroid was never a thing. Like I was making it up, you know?
Castleroid. I like that.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
How is
How is it any less valid than any other portmanteau, you know?
Metroidvania is easier to say.
Okay. Sacre bleu. Yeah, I don't think I really had anything else. We still got probably go about another 15 minutes because of the difficulties. Any of you guys think of some good trivia questions or something so I can give the rest of these away if you guys would like to try? Oh, sure, yeah. You know, I'm an outsider looking in on a lot of that stuff, and I think it's very tempting to get emotional and say that because there are actually cases where it is a popularity contest, or that's only a mild consideration, like, whereas there are like people who said Isabella should never have been in it or something like that. Again, I'm outsider looking in, you know. But what do you think about that?
I want to see Samus get her counter moves in Smash Brothers.
Yes. I want to see the Dread skin.
That's kind of like in the
Ultimate.
same vein as the esports comment. You know, like I've always appreciated Smash Brothers, even though I don't think I've ever played it just from a musical standpoint. But given how and it doesn't seem like it's going to abate or fade away anytime soon. So you have, as a fan of video games, you got to appreciate that, even if you don't like. As someone, I'm trying to remember who it was, but I do remember an anecdote about Meta Knight when they were first banned in tournament use around 2010, and it was either someone who was a developer on the game, or someone who said, like, stop trying to ruin our fun party game by making it serious. And I think maybe it was a YouTuber or something, but that really sums it all up. But, you know, that's like a fun tongue-in-cheek statement, but you can also appreciate how it's gone and grown and mutated into its own. It's like a fish in Metroid or something. Oh, I don't want those back, you know. Thoughts? Something? Over here? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was, I don't remember the names of the bosses, but obviously the final Emmy where, she just literally sucks the life out of it. But if you look backwards, with the Kraid stuff earlier in the game, it's a lot of like, don't take no guff, no take no garbage, type stuff. Kraid, the earlier one, the first boss that you have to cut off its tail, it's like Samus's characterization is entirely consistent in that, but it is a, show don't tell, or the fancy college word, which is like minimalism. Dark Souls is always great at that, but both the Prime story was great at it, and there were definitely elements in Dread that almost felt like a course correction from like stuff like Other M, but it is a good example of show don't tell. Go ahead. Yeah.
I've said this to other people before, but like, I think some of the best showing of Samus's character actually comes from Metroid Prime 2, because the whole idea is that you're just going for this one simple mission. She gets caught up in this whole other thing with the Luminon, and is basically helping saving their world for free. And there's like things throughout the game, like we find the Federation soldiers, and after learning what happens to them, like you see her like close the eye of the one who's like had his
Absolutely, yeah.
smashed in, and then so she saves the Luminos for free. She's only getting paid with the Federation stuff, but she does all for free. She gives them back their technology and their suits, because you see her in her just original Varia suit, and as they're all like bowing to her, genuflecting to her, all she does is she exits the game. It's just waiting.
Yeah, but it's still there with show don't tell, and you wanted to respond to that first, or just?
Oh, I just thought that ending was badass. You know, the game's badass.
See ya.
What do you think of Metroid Prime 2? We haven't heard much from you.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I liked it okay. I love the Luminon
Ringing
and
endorsement.
everything. And, no, I had a little bit of trouble with the map system, especially like there was one part was like right on top of the other part. I don't know. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Definitely, it didn't approach, again, that might be because of 2D versus 3D, but, all those black tentacles and stuff, it's clearly game design type stuff, in the dark world, but I got to give it props for just the concept, trying to do Link to the Past in 3D. So
Yeah.
maybe over time I'll lose some of my enthusiasm for it, but I like the way you put it, and it might be that game because, as opposed to like the original Samus Return of Samus, absolutely, Samus is a bounty hunter in that, and maybe that could be the argument where, especially pursuing the fleeing frigates from Zebes, that could be argued in Prime that she's on assignment too, but not so much for Prime 2. That's, and I know what you're really trying to say. You're saying Samus is virtue signaling. Remember when people used to say that all the time? I'm glad they didn't. Like anyone who. One of the most fundamental virtues of all human existence, altruism, selfless caring for other people. And they're like, nope, you're doing it because you're showing off. It's like, fuck that, sorry. And thank you for that. Because I think maybe if I can, I'll use that example too. But yeah, especially when they take her suit, they give back the powers and she's showing it through her actions, but I think the argument can be made there for that, and it's just a good moment, And of course, actually, I suppose I should have said this earlier. You remember how Prime 2 was advertised? Wasn't that just such a cluster F type thing?
I was like 10.
The viral marketing, you mean?
No, I meant like various magazine covers. You had Master Chief, a Hellgeist soldier, and then Samus. A character you didn't even play because, remember multiplayer? I understand there are some fans of it. It's not horrible, but it definitely is tacked on. But that's just one of those things that they really were trying to like position it as like some kind of competitive game or something weird like that. That's neither here nor there, but it's still the market they were like trying to target, in that, even though they didn't make any sense.
Like a second. I mean, like they don't have to, but like I would not say no to like some sort of like side thing where they try to make a return to multiplayer.
Oh, that was fun. Echoes multiplayer.
Honestly, I thought that the multiplayer in Hunters was like actually the best part about it.
Yeah. That was a mess of a game, but I was able to get through it. And again, the same thing. I certainly wouldn't say it was a bad game, Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm too generous. But again, it's hard really to get stuff to get mad at without really feeling like it's forced. I mean, we're all among, friends, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
It's just like mostly because it's like, it's not, like, the DS was not made for that kind of a game, with those kinds of controls.
Oh, I forgot about this, yeah.
The bosses are all the same thing except for the end.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point where I literally could not get any farther because you could not reliably aim with one of the weapons that you have to use to defeat one of the bosses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one, I believe it was literally the caption under the Reddit where I originally saw it, posting to a bunch of the Metroid groups on Facebook. The response was awesome. And I think there was one or two persons who very quickly said, "That's amazing, what a great creation you had." And I said, "Nope, not mine," you know. So another altruism type proof there, but that's like, not only is it raising them right, but it's like, I think in the original post, they said it was like 7 or 8, this kid, like, they're gonna be an artist. Hmm? Oh, really? Nice.
Oh my God.
I'm glad I didn't miss, oh, let me take the time to pedal that back. I totally created it. Let's engage in fisticuffs, sir, you know. Oh, wow.
Nice.
Did I get any of those details right? 6, 7, something like that? Oh, okay. Because I
Nice.
remember, you know, that just like in a less serious way, the Dread memes, I was like, gotta share this right away. That's like amazing.
It's awesome.
He loves Super Metroid. We have the NES, the SNES Classic, and I still have my SNES with my original.
Sweet.
He's got like the classic consoles in his room, and he'll play Super Metroid, and he loved the Baby Metroid, so I got him a plush Baby Metroid for Christmas. And when Dread came out, he was so excited to just watch, like sit down and like watch Dread, and you know, he was just all about like the Metroids, and we found out Metroid, you know, returns, all the different Metroids. So we went to my folks' house, I got to draw all of them and do the whole life cycle of the Metroid. And so now he wants to make a Samus costume for Halloween next year.
That's awesome.
Nice.
It's amazing.
And yeah, they should put that on the box. Sounds like a ringing endorsement to me.
I just took, well, I didn't know I made this.
That's amazing.
Really blowing my mind.
I think it was on Reddit originally, wasn't it? Or oh, so you didn't know how it ended up there? Okay, I thought you. Maybe I got that part wrong, but
Stuff without telling people are crediting them.
yeah. But it was, you know, like, I don't know how someone would even go about monetizing that. The clever thing is, like, it reminded me of, like, an old Calvin and Hobbes. Like, we get to draw on the sidewalk. It's like, I've never been a vandal before. It's like, this isn't vandalism. It washes right off. That was, like, my first thought. No one better do that or something like that. But it's just the level of precision. It's really fun stuff. So that was nice that worked out. So yeah, we got about, you know, again, 5 more minutes, I think, because we had I'm definitely going to remember those little projector difficulties. That was just bizarre. Hopefully it won't happen, even though we're still, day 1 is over technically, or day 0, whatever you want to call it. Closing thoughts, other topics? I don't think I had anything else. Oh yeah, this. I forgot where this was, but it was kind of applicable to the handheld thing, saying, if you ever needed proof that the N64 is miles ahead of the 32-bit competition, just compare these shots to the new PlayStation version of Castlevania. Whereas the N64 version features fully 3D characters and backgrounds, along with dazzling lighting effects, the PlayStation title is a flat 2D platform game where the tiny hero has to fight big, cheesy monsters. No comparison, really. You know, like, that's the kind of article that is, of course, aged, you know, like a fine vinegar or something like that. But I think someone said it was like a European, like, game fan or something like that. But this was obviously right when the N64 came out. But Metroid was also kind of that thing, which also speaks to, you know, like, Dread being 2D. And that's like, imagine if they had tried to release something like that around 97. Would we have seen something similar for Metroid? Probably. You know, like, no, don't do it. 2D is old hat. It's horrible, you know. But it's just something that in this case, the 2D, the 3D game, I believe this is just Castlevania 64, and the other one's Symphony of the Night, in case you can't tell. But the Metroid examples are also that way. It's amazing. And I think that was it. Oh yeah, a lesser miracle of Dread that where people kind of come to appreciate it, even from the design perspective. But isn't it wonderful, even in that was like an instilled belief, you know, that 2D was old hat that they did in the early PlayStation era. Isn't it nice that we don't have those kind of debates anymore, really? You know, and I don't know if we've ever had a dark time in video games, but I always thought that was like how much they were like beating us down on it, that, you know, you can't make 2D games anymore. And Nintendo was guilty of it too in some ways.
The DMC years.
Yeah, that's, so yeah, I think, so any closing thoughts, or, as we like to say, the other thing at MAGFest, you know, general shout out, come to con feedback, but you can also do it for this. I'll never know how much I screwed up unless you tell me. So, what do we think of this overall? Like C-, like, or pretty good? You know, nice, ringing endorsements. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this and have a good rest of MAGFest. Thank you for your thoughts, everybody, and thanks for coming.